Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're looking at a completely chaotic, rapidly escalating situation that just tore through the streets of Los Angeles. We're going to look at the facts, build out the timeline, and methodically analyze exactly how a totally normal afternoon in the Boyle Heights neighborhood turned into a massive pursuit and a shootout. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Imagine it's just after 2 p.m. Broad daylight. We're not talking about some midnight raid or a pre-planned sting operation here. We are talking right in the middle of the day in a residential neighborhood where people are just going about their business. The sheer speed at which something like this can go from a simple police observation to a total life-or-death emergency is pretty staggering. So how on earth does a midday stop turn into a deadly shootout? Well, to really grasp how fast this went sideways, we have to start at square one.
Part 1. The Incident. From a simple sighting to a high-speed chase.
Let's move to the map and see how this builds, because the geography here is really key to understanding the chaos. This whole thing kicks off with LAPD Newton area officers just out on standard patrol. And what's really wild is that this wasn't even the result of a 911 call or a radio dispatch. The officers actually spotted a man inside a car with a handgun right near the intersection of Washington and Alameda. Obviously, that's a huge red flag, so they try to initiate a traffic stop, but the suspect, he just guns it. And suddenly, we're thrown into the absolute most unpredictable phase of any police encounter, a high-speed pursuit, just tearing through populated surface streets. The suspect weaves his way through the Boyle Heights neighborhood and eventually ends up near Garnett and Marietta. And right there is where the pursuit hits a literal wall. The driver tries to navigate a left turn, totally blows it, and plows straight into a fence situated right next to the freeway. The car is completely disabled, so the chase on wheels, that part is over.
Part 2. The climax. A sudden crash, and then gunfire. Now, I really want to slow down our pacing right here for a second, because normally, right, a crash usually means a suspect realizes they're cornered and they give up. But absolutely not this time. That crash into the freeway fence was literally just the spark for an incredibly dangerous escalation. Let's break down these split-second moments. Step 1, the crash into the fence. Step 2, the suspect immediately bails out of the car on foot. Now, running from a crashed vehicle isn't super unusual, but as he's running, he pulls out a semi-automatic handgun. Keep in mind, you've got 3 or 4 police cruisers swarming in on him at this exact second. Officers are yelling at him, screaming at him to drop the weapon. But he just ignores them. Which brings us to step 3. The suspect actually opens fire on the responding officers while he is still running. Facing an immediate lethal threat, the officers return fire and the suspect goes down.
Part 3. The Aftermath. Dual outcomes.
So, the gunfire stops, and in an instant, this active pursuit turns into a frantic medical emergency. You've got an enormous adrenaline dump for everyone involved, and the priority shifts immediately to securing the suspect, grabbing the weapon, and getting medical help fast, because unfortunately, people were hit on both sides. So, the crucial point is, one of the responding LAPD officers actually took a bullet to the chest from the suspect. But as LAPD Chief Jim McDonald pointed out, and this is a real game changer, the officer's ballistic vest absolutely saved his life. Without it, that shot placement would have very likely been fatal. Thankfully, the officer was evaluated at the hospital and is expected to be totally fine. Now on the flip side, the suspect, who right now is only identified as a Hispanic male in his mid-30s, was treated right there at the scene by the fire department, rushed to a local hospital for surgery, and as of now, he remains in critical condition. Chief McDonald has summed up just how incredibly dangerous the situation was with a pretty chilling quote. He said, "He literally could have taken anybody out on the street at that time." And honestly, why does this matter to us? Why do we spend time breaking these events down in this explainer? Because it didn't happen in a vacuum. Boyle Heights is described by the chief as a really stable residential community. We're talking about families, people who have lived there for decades, kids playing outside. When a suspect decides to race through neighborhood streets and then bail out and start blindly blasting away, the risk of collateral damage is terrifyingly high. The fact that no innocent bystanders were caught in that crossfire is literally a miracle.
Part 4. The Investigation. Gathering the Evidence.
Okay, so the scene is taped off and the injured are at the hospital. What happens next? Well, we shift from the chaos on the street to the ultra-meticulous world of the investigation. And this brilliantly illustrates just how massive the response is when an officer is involved in a shooting. They have to figure out exactly what happened, shot by shot. You've got the LAPD's Specialized Force Investigation Division and the Robbery Homicide Division jumping right in. Now, they did recover that semi-automatic handgun exactly where the suspect fell. But the real heavy lifting now? It's piecing together the video.
Investigators are combing through all the officer body-worn cameras and the in-car dash video. They're basically knocking on doors, canvassing the whole neighborhood for Ring doorbell footage, checking business surveillance cameras, and adding all of that to dozens of interviews with witnesses and the cops themselves. It's like a giant puzzle, and they need every single piece to build a complete, transparent picture of what actually went down.
Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. In just a matter of minutes, a simple visual observation by two officers blew up into a high-speed chase, a crash, and a terrifying shootout right in a residential neighborhood. As the suspect fights for his life in surgery and the officer recovers from taking a round to the chest, the big question is this: how exactly will that massive web of video evidence, from the police body cams to the front porch doorbells, piece together those final chaotic seconds? The investigation is really just getting started, and the footage is ultimately going to be what tells the true story. Thank you so much for joining me to break this all down today. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.